Heartwarming discovery. A poor woman's incredible act saves Mafia boss's stuck, disabled daughter. In the heart of Chicago, amidst the bustling chaos of the streets, a single mother named Lisa was about to change everything. On a sun-drenched Saturday, the community hosted an event aimed at bringing neighbors together. Lisa, working tirelessly to hold it all together, juggled her two jobs while making sure her spirited daughter Sarah could share in the experience. Sarah, confined to a wheelchair due to a rare disability, was like a spark in Lisa's life, a reminder that hope existed even in a gritty neighborhood. As laughter filled the air, Sarah squealed in delight. Her big dream? To walk on her own one day. She watched other kids run, her bright eyes shimmering with determination. Lisa's heart tugged with simultaneous pride and sadness. Whispers of financial struggles danced in the background, but her love for Sarah drowned out the noise. Each paycheck was a small battle, yet every glimmer of joy reminded Lisa why she persisted. If Sarah could dream so big, how could she not fight for a better life? Across town, another young woman was searching for a way out. Mia, daughter of a notorious mafia boss named Tony. The stigma of her father's dark empire hovered over her like a thick fog. Enclosed in her own gilded cage, Mia felt suffocated. She sat at the event in her wheelchair, unnoticed, surrounded by laughter, but feeling invisible. While everyone celebrated life on the outside, she felt like a ghost in a haunted house. Mia longed for her father's presence, but his world often pushed her away. Unspoken tension loomed between them, shrouding her in isolation. As the event unfolded, a sudden scream cut through the festival vibe. Mia had wheeled herself along the pavement, fascination pulling her closer to the street. But before she knew it, she found herself stuck, wheels caught in a precarious position, fear clutching at her chest. Panic rose. She felt like a ship caught in a storm, and the chaotic world around her started to spin. Which is when Lisa spotted her through the throngs of festival-goers. Ignoring the muttered gossip about her willingness to help a mafia boss's daughter, she rushed toward Mia. In a moment that felt like time stopped, Lisa grasped the wheelchair's handles and yanked, freeing Mia from her distress. Relief washed over Mia, and in that instant, genuine connection ignited between the two women. "Thank you," Mia breathed, eyes wide with both surprise and a flicker of newfound hope. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the community watched in awe, whispers turned to admiration. Lisa and Mia stood amidst the crowd, each grappling with their realities. Lisa's heart raced. She was breaking through the walls of judgment surrounding their families. In that electric moment, they realized they weren't so different after all. Two women locked in struggles that threatened to tear their worlds apart. But just as hope began to bloom, a distant hiss of trouble loomed. Tony's empire faced impending danger, and the stakes grew higher. Both women understood they stood on the edge of a fragile connection. Would their seemingly distant lives converge in a way that would challenge everything they knew? In the tension, the question echoed. Could an act of kindness shift the entire course of their lives? Or would the shadows from their pasts lurk too closely? The vibrant festival continued around them, laughter swirling like colorful confetti through the air. But for Lisa and Mia, the world had narrowed to a small, intense focus. Mia's face held a mixture of gratitude and confusion. "Why did you help me?" Mia asked, the vulnerability in her voice making Lisa's heart swell. There was a shyness, a fragile openness behind Mia's guarded demeanor, so unlike the fierce reputation her family had built. I couldn't just stand there and watch," Lisa replied, her voice steady. "Everyone deserves a hand when they're stuck, right?" Mia's brow furrowed, a hint of disbelief flickering in her eyes. The tension of their backgrounds threatened to intrude once more, but instead she found herself drawn to Lisa's unwavering kindness. As if sensing the budding connection, Sarah wheeled over, enthusiasm shining like sunshine. "Mom, who's your new friend?" "This is Mia," Lisa introduced gently, her hand resting on Sarah's wheel. "She's very brave." "Hi, Mia," Sarah beamed, her innocence disarming the air of unease. "Do you want to join us? We can play games together." Mia hesitated, looking between Lisa and Sarah. 1,000 what-ifs raced through her mind. Could she really spend time with the mother-daughter duo? What would her father say? The chaos of her home life flirted with her thoughts, but something deep inside urged her to take a chance. "I would like that," Mia finally said, a smile breaking through her initial uncertainty. As the three of them moved toward the main area filled with games and music, the world around them began to fade, and laughter and light became the backdrop to their unexpected bond. Lisa watched as Sarah leaned forward with excitement, explaining the rules to a ring toss game, while Mia listened, her usual shadows dissipating under the warmth of this newfound friendship. But deep down, reality gnawed at Mia. The Mafia world she was born into loomed in the distance, ever-present and unforgiving. Yet here, among Lisa and Sarah's joy, she felt a pull, a desire to be free. As they played, Lisa could see Mia slowly opening up, her laughter ringing louder each time Sarah scored a point. The crowd around them danced, oblivious to the quiet revolution unfolding just as much as Lisa was unaware of the dangers brewing back home for Mia. Their connection, however fragile, was beginning to breathe life into something neither of them anticipated. Facing their fears head-on, they shared pieces of their stories. Lisa recounted struggles, joys, and dreams for Sarah's future. Mia, in turn, spoke of her solitude, her hopes of stepping out of her father's shadow and finding her own path. Yet fate has a way of challenging the best moments. Just as a sense of normalcy began to settle, a figure emerged from the crowd. Tony, Mia's father, was striding toward them, an aura of authority crackling in the air. The laughter faded as eyes turned, the joyous bubble around Lisa and Mia threatened to burst. "Mia," he called sharply, voice like thunder. Frozen, Mia's heart raced. She looked at Lisa, the confusion mirrored in both their eyes. What if this was it? Would their fragile bond shatter under the weight of reality? Tony's presence loomed larger, a storm ready to roll in. Would he take Mia back into his world and clouds of darkness, or would she stand her ground? Caught in the crossroads of fate, Mia felt the sudden weight of choices pressing down. Would she choose her father or the unexpected friendship that surged through her, igniting hope within? As events spiraled chaotically, the question lingered. Could a single moment of courage change everything, or would the shadows of the past pull them back into darkness? Mia stood frozen, her heart pounding like a drum. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, to obey her father's command. Yet a part of her yearned to stay. She glanced at Lisa and Sarah, whose faces reflected worry and confusion. Lisa's grip on Sarah tightened slightly, as though bracing against the storm Tony brought with him. "Mia, we need to go," Tony insisted, his voice layered with authority. He stepped closer, the crowd parting for him like waves before a looming ship, casting a shadow that chilled Mia to her core. "No," Mia surprised herself by shouting. The word erupted from her, raw and defiant. The gasp from the onlookers fueled her courage. She faced her father, unyielding. I want to stay with them." The world fell silent. Lisa's eyes widened in disbelief, and Sarah looked between Mia and her mother, sensing the tension hanging thick in the air. Mia had never spoken back to her father like this before. Each beat of her heart harmonized with the thrill of freedom she craved, a chance to escape the chains of her past. But the price of courage was steep, and fear clawed at her throat. Tony's glare hardened, a mix of anger and surprise etched in his expression. "You think you can just abandon your family? They don't understand you like—" "I do," he growled. Mia took a half step back, caught between the pull of her father's words and the warmth of Lisa and Sarah. The innocence of Sarah's gaze dug deeper, an anchor amidst the storm, urging Mia to find her strength. "They're my friends. They help me feel alive," Mia confessed, her voice trembling yet resolute. As Tony opened his mouth to retort, a flicker of something passed through his eyes. Surprise? Annoyance? Maybe even consideration. The crowd felt electric, breaths suspended as they waited for a sign of how this conflict would unfold. "Mia, listen," he said slowly, his tone slightly softened, yet still commanding. "This is not a game. You're not the little girl you once were. You belong with us," he asserted, but there was a crack in his armor, a hint of desperation. Did he fear losing her? The realization sent new fire through her veins. "No, Dad, I can't go back to that life. I don't want to play the part you've chosen for me," Mia replied, her resolve strengthening with every word. "I want to choose my own path." Around them, whispers began to swell, the audience captivated by the fierce confrontation. Lisa stepped forward, her expression a mix of concern and support. "Mia's right, Tony. She deserves a chance to decide who she is outside the shadow of your name. We all do." Mia's heart surged at the solidarity, the trust Lisa placed in her, even now. Seeing Lisa's strength reflected in Sarah gave her the last push she needed. Mia took a breath, the festival's energy wrapping around her like a warm embrace. "Mia," Tony paused, his expression shifting. "You think this is easy for me?" The question hung heavily in the air. In that moment of vulnerability, she caught a glimpse of the man behind the Mafia persona, a flicker of a father's concern, buried beneath layers of power and expectation. Gathering her courage, Mia took a step closer, defiance fading into compassion. "I'm sorry if it's hard, but this is about me. I can't live in a world where I can't be myself. I don't want to live in fear." The silence felt thunderous. Tony's eyes bore into hers, weighing the weight of his expectations against the truth she revealed. The tension was thick, yet charged with a possibility neither of them had dared to hope for. Suddenly, a shout rang out. "Hey!" A strident voice cut through the air. The moment interrupted. A gang of Tony's men was pushing through the crowd, their faces set with grim determination. "Boss, we need to talk," one barked, urgency in his voice. Mia's heart raced. In one sudden realization, everything began to unravel. She understood her father's world didn't just involve loyalty and tradition, it also thrived on danger, chaos, and blood. "Mia!" Tony's attention snapped back to her, his demeanor shifting again, encased in protectiveness mixed with fear. "We will finish this," he growled, leaning closer, his voice low. "You're still my daughter." As he turned to address his men, fear clashed with hope inside Mia's chest. The junction of her old life and the promise of something new surged around her. Mia stole a glance at Lisa and Sarah, sensing their unwavering presence against the tide of her past. Could she hold on to what felt so possible, even as shadows loomed? With that thought, the festival's sounds faded behind them, the celebration almost haunting in its brightness, while dark clouds gathered in the distance. Would this be the moment that defined her destiny, or would she return to the past she desperately sought to escape? The questions lingered, a flicker of fear and hope swirling into the unknown. As the shouting subsided, the noise of the festival poured back in, a stark contrast to the intensity of the standoff. Mia's senses sharpened. Every beat of the drums, laughter, and cheers felt like a world away from the tension that hung thick between her and Tony. Tony turned, his back still to Mia, his face carved from stone. "What is it?" he demanded, irritation lacing his tone. The men were close now, their expressions betraying no emotion, but the energy around them was heavy, ominous. Mia's eyes fluttered to Lisa and Sarah. They stood rooted, the shock of the moment still processing. Lisa's brow was furrowed, and though she looked worried, there was something fierce about her stance. It gave Mia strength. "Mia," Tony snapped, dragging her focus back. "You don't get to choose when this conversation ends." "I have to choose what I want, Dad," Mia shot back, her voice stronger now, a lifeline out of the fear threatening to drown her. I won't be just a princess in your kingdom anymore. I refuse. The moment hung pregnant, and Mia could see her words sink into Tony, slow and deliberate. He clenched his jaw, eyes glistening in the festival lights. The crowd had tightened around them, eager onlookers straining to hear every word, to catch a glimpse of the unfolding drama. Before Tony could reply, another of his men piped up. "Boss, we really need to get going." His tone held a subtle urgency, slicing through the air like a knife. "I'm busy," Tony snapped, his eyes still locked with Mia's, resting for control over the moment. But Mia felt something shift within him, a crack, a fracture in the armor he usually wore. "Dad, what's more important?" she pressed, desperation creeping into her voice. "Your men or your daughter?" The question ricocheted between them, heavy and cutting. For a heartbeat, the world around her receded, leaving just the two of them in a bubble of unresolved tension. With a sigh, Tony finally deflated, a loose thread of humanity unwinding. He lowered his head, taking a backward glance at his men. "You're right," he murmured. His voice was almost unrecognizable, a mix of exhaustion and pain. He seemed to wrestle, gridlocked, as if caught between his obligations and the reality of his daughter's choice. Mia watched him, heart racing. That flicker of vulnerability intrigued her. Beneath the shadow of the Mafia boss, there was a father. The man who had raised her, the one who had sacrificed everything. Would he allow her to choose her own life? The crowd began to murmur, a collective breath held in uneasy anticipation. Mia could feel excitement waver with every second, like a candle flickering in a draft. Tension turned to hope, but doubt still gnawed at her heart. What if this was fleeting? "Please, Dad," she urged softly, stepping closer, her voice inviting him back to her. "You can still be my father, but I need you to trust me. Let me go. Let me find my own way with my friends." The men shifted uncomfortably. A few exchanged glances, sensing the shift. In that moment, they weren't just an audience. They were witnesses to a tender fracture in the status quo. Just then, the music swelled, enveloping them like a warm blanket, and the festival surged around them. Children laughed, lights twinkled like stars, and the scent of funnel cakes wafted through the air, sweet and nostalgic. It was a perfect juxtaposition to the charged reality in their little bubble. Then Tony turned sharply, a harsh breath escaping him. "You really think this is the answer?" Mia's heart sank, but she held his gaze. "Maybe it can be the start of a new one, if you let it." In that instant, another shout echoed through the crowd, this one more chaotic. A ruckus followed, a heavy crash, and the sound of people gasping. Mia glanced to her left, feeling the panic rise. A couple of men were struggling with someone, the chaos interrupting everything like a sharp whistle in the silence. "Mia!" Tony barked, panic returning to his voice. "Stay back!" But Mia barely heard him as she moved forward, breaking through the onlookers. Something was happening, and she felt a tugging at her heart, a call to action. The moment had shifted again, and this time it didn't just involve her father. It involved everyone. "Wait!" she shouted as she pushed through the crowd. What had captured her attention was the realization that within chaos, there could be profound change. Mia's instincts kicked in. She had to find out what was happening, both for her sake and for those around her. Would this surreal moment be a turning point, or another step back into the shadows she sought to escape? As she approached the scene, the frantic expressions of the crowd painted an unsettling picture. Would she be a part of the chaos, or could she find a way to weave through to something brighter? Mia squeezed through the throng, her heart beating louder than the festival drums. The bright lights felt dim, overshadowed by the urgency looming in the air. She finally reached the front, where two of Tony's men were wrestling with a figure on the ground. A woman, covered in dirt and showing the marks of a recent struggle. Panic coursed through Mia as she pushed past their sturdy frames. "Stop! Let her go!" she yelled, her voice firm but laced with fear. The men hesitated, caught off guard by her fierce demand. "Back off, Mia," one shouted, still trying to restrain the woman, who was wild-eyed and shaking. But Mia didn't flinch. "Just give her a chance." She knelt beside the woman, her gaze softening. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe with me." The woman's eyes darted around, confusion painted all over her face. Mia could see she was terrified, of the men, of the festival, and maybe even of herself. "Mia, get away!" Tony's voice broke through the haze, urgent and commanding. A knot tightened in her stomach. What if his men didn't listen? But looking back at Tony, she saw him bent forward, eyes locked on her, fear battling with authority. Just then, the woman burst forth with surprising strength, shoving a man off her. "Please, I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just wanted my brother." Her voice cracked with desperation as she pulled her tangled hair back from her face, revealing a raw emotion that was palpable. Mia's heart sank. "What do you mean? What happened?" "He's in trouble. Further on, they took him." The woman gestured wildly, her limbs trembling. "I tried to get him, but they wouldn't let me." Fear spiraled through Mia. They had to get to this brother before anything worse happened. Maybe this chaos was the very change Mia had been seeking. Perhaps it sat at the core of her struggle against her father's shadow. "Mia, we can't get involved." Tony stepped forward, hands balled into fists. "This is not our fight." But Mia shook her head fiercely. "Dad, she needs help. I can't just stand by." The other people, sensing the impending drama, had gone quiet. They watched, rapt, as Mia became the center of this storm. A flicker of hope ignited in her. Maybe this was a chance to rise above, an opportunity for her to step out of his looming legacy. "Where is he?" She turned back to the woman. "Where do we find him?" The woman looked hesitantly toward where the crowd was gathered, shaking her head as raw emotions tore through her. I can't believe that you would help me." Mia took the woman's hand gently, squeezing it with reassurance. "We're getting him out, I promise. Just show me." Tony stood there struggling, the chaos fracturing his carefully managed world. He was at war between protecting Mia and his need to maintain control. "Mia, no!" He reached for her, but something shifted within him as he watched. Something was breaking through. The crowd murmured among themselves, eyes darting between Tony and his daughter, the woman on the ground, and the unseen danger. "This is insane," one man muttered, while another whispered, "She could be putting herself in even more danger." But Mia felt a sense of purpose wash over her. She was done being a pawn in her father's game. In this moment, standing alongside the woman, she felt empowered and eager to claim her own destiny. "Trust me, Dad, I can do this," she urged. Tony hesitated, constricted by the swirling chaos. She was right there, a light glowing amidst the unease, and deep down, he felt the weight of his own fears merge with pride. As the urgency crept back, Mia turned back to the woman. "What's his name? We don't have time." "Alex," the woman cried, her eyes shining with gratitude. "His name is Alex." With that, the tension grew thicker than the summer heat. Would they be able to rally together, defy the chaos, find Alex, and bring him back to safety? As Mia and the woman formed a plan, she caught Tony's gaze. Could this mark the beginning of a new understanding between them? Would both father and daughter fight for something greater than themselves? Just as determination settled in Mia's heart, a distant crash echoed through the fairgrounds. Something else was happening, and the stakes were only getting higher. Mia felt a surge of adrenaline, her determination hardening into something fierce. "We need to go," she said, surveying the crowd with urgency. The buzz of excitement surrounding the festival faded into a low hum. There was a mission now, something that mattered more than the vibrant colors and infectious laughter that usually filled the air. "Follow me," the woman urged, still clutching Mia's hand tightly. Together, they melted into the throng of people, pushing their way through the festival. The music that had once seemed joyful turned haunting in the shadow of their crisis. "Mia!" Tony shouted, his voice a mixture of panic and protective instinct. Despite his rising fear, something in his expression shifted. He wasn't just watching his daughter head towards danger. He was beginning to understand that Mia's fight belonged to her alone, and she wouldn't be swayed by his caution. As they weaved through food stalls and laughter, the woman leaned in close, her voice barely above a whisper. "I saw them take Alex. They're down by the old carousel. Please, we have to hurry." Mia felt a tug at her heart. The carousel? The very place where treasured memories were made. It felt wrong that something so joyful had become the backdrop for tragedy. She couldn't let Alex and his sister linger in that chaos. "Mia, stop!" Tony finally caught up, breathless and desperate. "You don't have a plan. We can't just walk into trouble." "We have to try, Dad," she shouted back, feeling a mix of rebellion and hope. "I can't turn my back on her, not while she's scared for her brother." Tony's face contorted with frustration. "You don't know what you're stepping into. It could be dangerous." Mia understood that. Her heart raced with the weight of it. But the fear gnawed at her more than the potential danger. If we don't try, what's the point of any of this? "I don't want to be afraid anymore." He reached out, entangled in his instinct to protect her. The rift between father and daughter throbbed between them, but Mia felt courage grow in the distance. That space was beginning to bridge as Tony's fierce look softened, eyes glimmering with the realization that Mia was no longer just his little girl. "Let's go," he finally said, tight-lipped but resolute. "But stay by my side. We need to do this together." They formed a tight trio, Mia, her new ally, and Tony, pushing through the crowd like a wave, all on a mission. For the first time, Mia felt like she was moving forward not just for her, but for someone else too. That incredible sensation buzzed in her veins. As they finally reached the carousel, the laughter faded. It felt eerie here now, the painted horses frozen mid-gallop. Shadows danced under the lights, creating a disquieting atmosphere. Mia's heart threatened to outpace itself. They had to find Alex quickly. "Over there!" The woman's finger pointed toward a dimly lit alley just off the carousel area. They took him that way. Hesitation washed across Mia's face. What if Alex was hurt? What if the people who took him were still there? The threads of fear and determination tangled deep within her. She had to be brave. "Stay close," Tony murmured, an unspoken understanding forming as they stepped into the darkness of the alley. The flickering lights behind them faded, but resolve burned bright within. Just as they crept forward, a sharp yell pierced the air, echoing off the brick walls. "Get away from him!" The voice was unmistakable, heavy with anger and fear. Mia's breath caught in her throat. They were running out of time. She was about to make a choice, to shout out, to dive into the fray, when a blinding flash of light erupted from the alley, illuminating the faces of terrified strangers. In that moment, everything shifted. Were they too late? What would they find waiting for them in that alley? So many questions piled up in Mia's mind, her heart beating like a drum against her chest, as they inched deeper into the unknown. The flash faded, leaving shadows dancing again. Mia blinked hard, trying to piece together what she saw. For a moment, her heart leaped with fear, but then a voice cut through the tension, clear and sharp. "Stay back." They halted, instinctively huddling together. The alley stretched dark and ominous before them, but the truth of the situation came creeping in. It wasn't just fear that gripped her. It was anger. They were fighting for Alex. "Don't do anything stupid," the woman beside her whispered, eyes darting. It was a reminder, but Mia felt adrenaline push her forward. She wanted to scream out for Alex, to let him know they were coming. The stakes were too high now. As if summoned by her call, another voice rang out from deeper in the alley. "Mia, is that you?" It was Alex. Hope sparked within her. He was close. "Alex!" she shouted, ignoring Tony's gentle pull on her arm. She broke into a sprint down the alley, propelled by the sound of her brother's voice. "Mia!" he yelled again, laced with urgency. There, at the end of the alley, two figures loomed, shrouded in darkness. One held Alex tightly, frustration twisting his features, while the other stood off to the side, half hidden by shadows. The woman with Mia hesitated. "We need to be smart about this," she insisted, her grip tightening around Mia's arm. But the caution felt like a heavy anchor, dragging Mia down. She wanted to burst past them, to fight, but the reality of her father and the woman beside her held her back. "Let him go," Mia shouted, her voice trembling but strong. The kidnapper turned at the sound of her voice, eyes flashing with surprise. "You shouldn't have come here," he snarled. Alex squirmed in his grasp, and Mia's heart raced. "Let him go!" Tony's voice came alongside hers, filled with authority. "Now!" Mia could see the glint of metal in the man's hand, fear flooding her veins. But Alex's face was etched with determination, eyes locking with hers. "Mia, run!" he cried, panic flooding through the alley. "No," she screamed, resisting the urge to retreat. "I'm not leaving you." The sight of her brother's struggle propelled her further. It ignited something in her heart, courage mixed with fury. Suddenly, a loud shout erupted behind them. The festival music swelled like a tide, covering Mia's next move. The kidnapper glanced behind, a flicker of hesitation crossing his face. "Now," the woman commanded, her voice steady. In that instant, Mia leapt forward, just as Tony advanced beside her, ready to protect her. The alley erupted into chaos. Alex was their focal point, their beacon, and they had to break the darkness surrounding him. But then, the figure holding Alex jerked back hard, and just as quickly, everything seemed to shatter. Lights flickered intensely, as if the universe was holding its breath, and time slowed. Mia's heart thundered in her chest. Would they save Alex? Had they acted too late? In a heartbeat, the answer surged through her, a truth that felt raw, undeniable. The breath caught in her throat as she darted forward. "Alex!" she shouted, one last time before all hell broke loose in a flash of movement and sound. Would Mia's last shout unleash a miracle, or would they be forever tethered to darkness? The alley loomed, and their chance seemed precariously thin. What awaited them in the chaos ahead? Chaos erupted in the alley as Mia surged forward, her heart a raging storm of panic and determination. Time felt elongated, each second stretching painfully as she fought her way through the shadows. The world around her blurred, filled only with the desperate need to reach Alex. The kidnapper's eyes widened as he sensed the shift in the air. For a fleeting second, uncertainty flickered across his face, and that was all Mia needed. With every ounce of her being, she lunged, her body driven by love and fear. "Let him go!" she shouted again, more forcefully this time, as if her voice could cut through the darkness. Tony was right beside her, the fierce protection radiating from him like a shield. "I'm coming for you!" Alex twisted, trying to break free, narrowing his gaze onto Mia. "Don't be stupid," he shouted, a mix of anger and helplessness in his voice. But the desperation in her brother's eyes only fueled her fire. She was close, closer than she ever imagined. Without warning, the kidnapper tightened his grip on Alex, yanking him closer, the cold blade catching the flickering light. The alley seemed to echo with tension, the sounds of the festival fading into a distant hum. "Get back!" he screamed, his voice dripping with malice, eyes wild with a twisted energy. Mia barely registered the shouts around her, her world contracted down to Alex and the monster holding him captive. The woman who had urged caution earlier now charged forward with unexpected ferocity, her own determination igniting a fire in Mia's chest. "Run at my signal," she barked, her voice a mixing pot of authority and fear. Mia nodded, understanding flickered between them. In that moment of unison, hope blended with fear. Together, they would bring Alex back. As the kidnapper turned to threaten them, the woman shouted, "Now!" Mia exploded into movement, fueled by an instinct deeper than fear. She reached out, her fingertips grazing the edge of Alex's sleeve. "I'm right here, Alex," she cried, every syllable etched with love. In a heartbeat, Tony was right beside her. With a surge of strength, he charged forward, his body acting as a barrier, putting himself between Mia and the kidnapper's weapon. There was a flash of fear in the kidnapper's eyes, regret and realization crashing together, the desperate look of a man cornered. Mia's chance had arrived. She raced past Tony, closing the gap between herself and Alex. "Just a little closer," she whispered to herself, her chest tight with hope. Suddenly, in one swift motion, Alex seemed to gather his own strength. He twisted free just as the kidnapper faltered, his focus split. Mia's heart soared as she grabbed Alex's arm, yanking him away from danger. But as she felt his warmth against her skin, the world spun violently. The kidnapper roared in rage, lunging forward, as Mia stumbled backward, shielding Alex behind her. "Watch out!" Tony shouted, but it was too late. The alley erupted in chaos, a wild cacophony of shouts and footsteps. Mia felt the weight of uncertainty bearing down. They had made it this far, but what would come next? Fear twisted in her gut as she glanced at Alex, seeing the mix of relief and dread in his eyes. "Run!" Alex yelled, pushing Mia forward as he fought to shake off fear and confusion. They needed to get out, now. And then she saw it, the glint of light reflecting off a broken bottle, sharp and menacing. "Oh no," she gasped, knowing that danger was still close. How would they escape this? Would they be trapped in this nightmare? Or could they fight their way to freedom? As she dashed forward, a wild surge of adrenaline pumping through her veins, she felt the culmination of their journey hinge on this moment. The alleys stretched ahead, shrouded in uncertainty. Was their strength enough to break free, or would they descend deeper into the shadows? Mia's heart raced as they fled deeper into the alley, her mind firing off questions faster than her feet could carry her. The echo of their hurried steps mixed with the distant sounds of the festival, a stark reminder of the life they were fighting to reclaim. "Keep going," Alex urged, his voice gripping her attention like a lifeline. They dashed through the darkness, adrenaline sharpening their senses. Mia felt Alex's hand in hers, the warmth grounding her amidst the chaos. Suddenly, a sharp scream pierced the air, and they froze momentarily, thumping hearts synchronizing to the backdrop of adrenaline. Mia's eyes darted around, searching for the source, yet all she found were shadowed silhouettes in the alley. "Move!" Tony shouted, breaking the spell of fear. They resumed their flight, momentum accelerating as they turned a corner. Mia could barely breathe, the weight of her family's safety pressing heavily on her chest. "Are you okay?" she whispered to Alex, glancing sideways, trying to catch a glimpse of his expression. His brows were furrowed, a storm brewing behind his eyes. "I'm fine, just—" Alex's words were abruptly cut off as they rounded another corner, stumbling upon a dead end. Tall walls loomed around them, steep and unyielding, the only escape being the path they had just come from. The noise from the festival now felt like haunting laughter just out of reach. "We're trapped," Mia gasped, panic clawing at her throat. "What do we do?" Tony slammed his fist against the wall, frustration boiling over. "We're not done yet. We find a way out," he said, his voice steady despite the urgency thrumming in the air. Mia glanced over her shoulder, fear curling tightly in her gut like a rattlesnake ready to strike. "Look!" Alex pointed toward a narrow window ledge just above their heads. Mia's heart leaped with hope. "Can you reach it?" "I can try." He took a step back, positioning his feet wide. With determination shining in his eyes, he sprinted forward and jumped, fingers grazing the edge of the ledge. But the window was too high. "Here, let me help." Tony stepped closer, hoisting Alex up with brute strength. With a swift push, Alex managed to grasp the ledge, pulling himself up. "Go, go," Mia encouraged, her palms clammy with anxiety. Time felt like it was slipping through her fingers. But as Alex clambered up, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the alley behind them. "Hurry up," Mia hissed, fear crashing over her like a tide. "I got it," Alex shouted as he flipped himself over the ledge and landed with a muffled thud on the other side. "Now you," Tony urged Mia. In one fluid movement, she followed Alex's lead, scrambling to get up. She reached the ledge, fingers digging into the texture of the wall, and with a final push, she propelled herself over. They landed hard, breathless but alive. Mia blinked against the sudden brightness, her heart racing as they found themselves in a small, darkened room. The air was thick with dust. "Where are we?" Alex panted, their surroundings unclear as they stood in the dim light. "I don't know, but we need to find a way out," Mia replied, scanning the room, her stomach knotting as she thought about the kidnapper. Were they safe? Suddenly, a creak echoed from the far corner of the room. They froze as a figure stepped out from the shadows. It was a woman, her eyes wide with surprise. "You're not supposed to be here," she whispered, but her expression quickly shifted to panic. Mia's heart raced again. Had they walked straight into another trap? "Who are you?" Mia asked, taking a cautious step back, holding on to Alex's arm tightly. The woman hesitated, glancing toward the door, then back to them. "You need to trust me." And just like that, their world spun once more. Would they finally meet a friend in this twisted nightmare? Or was this yet another trick waiting to unfold? The woman stood before them, eyes darting as if she were weighing the risk of betrayal. "Please," she urged softly, "I know you're scared, but you're in danger. I can help you escape." Mia's heart raced, her instincts screaming for caution. But the sincerity in the stranger's gaze sparked a thread of hope. "Why would you help us?" Mia asked, voice trembling. "Because I know what it's like to be trapped," the woman replied, stepping closer. "I was once caught in your world too. I've seen things you can't imagine. But together, we can get you out." "Wait, how do you know my father?" Alex interjected, suspicion etching his features. The woman took a deep breath, her composure steadying. "Your father's enemies are closing in. They won't stop until they find you. I've been watching, waiting for a chance to help. Trust me, we must move before they find us. They'll come sooner than you think." Mia exchanged worried glances with Alex. Tony's presence loomed in their minds, and the weight of family ties pressed heavily on their hearts. They knew Tony would do anything to protect them, but this moment felt different. This wasn't just about blood, it was about survival. "Where's the exit?" Mia finally asked, forcing herself to focus on the task at hand. "We need to out of here." "Follow me," the woman urged, leading the way to a scratched-up door in the corner of the room. "Be quiet." As Mia stepped forward, she felt the fire of purpose igniting within. Each breath pulled her closer to the freedom she had long yearned for, not just for herself, but for Alex and their new friend, too. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow, dimly lit hallway. They slipped into the shadows, moving swiftly through the uncertainty. With every step, the weight of their past began to lose its grip, replaced by a surge of hope. As they pressed on, the sounds of the festival faded behind them, replaced by the muffled thud of footsteps echoing in the distance. Mia glanced back at Alex. "Stick close," she whispered. He nodded, determination sparking in his eyes. Suddenly, the woman paused at a second door, her breath quickening as she turned to them. "This leads outside, but listen, there are men watching. You must be careful." Before she could finish, the door swung open and a figure emerged into the light. It was one of Tony's men. Panic shot through Mia and Alex as they ducked back into the shadows. The man scanned the hallway, his gaze penetrating. "Let's go," the woman urged, hastening her tone. As they rushed past, the shadow turned, caught sight of them. "Hey!" he shouted, alarm rippling through the dim light. Mia's heart raced to a frantic beat. They darted through the door just in time, bursting into an alley littered with debris and overgrown weeds. The night air hit them like a wave, filled with the scent of freedom and fear. "Over there," the woman pointed, "that gate will lead us to the street." With renewed adrenaline, they sprinted toward the rusty gate, Mia's mind spinning with possibilities. Freedom lay just ahead, but the shadows of their past still lingered, waiting for the moment to pounce. They reached the gate and pulled it open, the metal screeching against the silence of the night. As they stepped through, an icy chill of uncertainty rippled down Mia's spine. They could still hear shouts echoing from the alley behind them. "Quick, we need to blend into the crowd," the woman urged, leading them toward the main street where the festival lights danced merrily. Heart pounding, Mia turned to Alex. "We're going to make it. We're going to be free," she breathed, hope pouring out as tears welled in her eyes. But that hope was short-lived. Like a nightmare creeping back into their lives, Mia's phone vibrated in her pocket. She looked down and saw her father's name across the screen. For a fleeting moment, time stopped. The woman's eyes flicked nervously. "We need to keep moving. Leave it." Mia felt torn. Her heart ached at the thought of Tony. But this wasn't about guilt or obligation anymore. It was about finally breaking free. Ignoring the call, she pushed past the thoughts that clawed at her heart. "Let's go," she urged, gripping Alex's hand tight, and the woman led the way into the crowd. The festival erupted in joy around them, laughter, sparkling lights, families gathered together. But as they ducked into the sea of merriment, a heavy weight settled in Mia's heart. They were escaping one danger, but would they ever truly be free of the shadows? As they merged with the crowd, Mia caught a glimpse of Tony's figure at the far end of the street, his expression dark and stormy. The weight of his gaze felt like a physical force, pulling her back in. "Mia!" he shouted, desperate urgency woven into each syllable. "Stop!" But this time, Mia's resolve forged a new path. She turned to face the festival, a world where laughter reigned and bonds were forged, not in shadows, but in the light of shared dreams. "We're leaving, Dad!" she shouted back with newfound strength. And with that, as Mia held on to Alex and their newfound ally, hope surged brighter than ever. This was her moment to embrace the world ahead, empty of dark legacies and filled with light. She whispered to herself, "This is where we begin anew." The crowd cheered, the lights twinkled brighter, and the festival buzzed with the promise of tomorrow, a world waiting to be explored, unhindered by past chains. As they escaped into freedom, each heartbeat was a tribute to the courage they carried within, a testament to the power of hope and the bonds they'd forged against the odds. And though shadows might always linger, Mia knew one truth deep in her heart. Together, they would find their way. Now, don't wait, not even one more second. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Every click counts. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. Your voice matters. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can inspire change. This is the moment to show your support.